I don't think it's right for me to sit here and talk about Chelsea's season and explain all the ins and outs when we've got Kweku here. Kweku, talk to me about this Chelsea season, and then we'll look into whether it can change.
Do I have to?
Last time this season.
It's been terrible from start to finish. When you look at the recruitment in the summer, a few eyebrows were raised, but you go into it with optimism because you've got Thomas Tuchel, a manager who led us to third place last season, who got us to a couple of cup finals, who obviously won the Champions League a couple of seasons ago against Man City. You've got a safe pair of hands looking after the team. And then you sack him a week after the transfer window closes. So these players that come and sign for a particular manager are now playing under a different manager. And I don't want to come here and slate Graham Potter, but a man who wasn't ready for the job. The environment was not set up for him to succeed, and we saw the results of that on the pitch and off the pitch in terms of his navigation with the media, his navigation with his players, the man management. It just didn't feel right. And his tenure at Chelsea was short-lived, much as a lot of Chelsea managers in our recent history. And then Frank Lampard comes in for the vibes. And there were no vibes. And there were no vibes.
He sort of killed the vibes, really.
He kind of killed the vibes. And Frank Lampard's one of my favourite players. And it's just been a terrible season. If you look at how Todd Bowley's been portrayed, rightly so. It seems like he hasn't got a grip of what it means to be an owner of a club like Chelsea. And he has a very different style to Roman Abramovich, who we heard very little from, but obviously reasons outside of football, he had to relinquish ownership of Chelsea Football Club. And it's been terrible from start to finish. And whether Chelsea can bounce back under Pochettino, which is the question being raised, it remains to be seen. Will Todd Bowley allow Pochettino to really imprint his style on this Chelsea team, on this Chelsea squad, or is he going to be micromanaging from the back? It's going to be interesting to see Chelsea progress next season. What I will say is, look at the landscape in terms of the Premier League. Man City are bankers for top four. The rest of the three positions are very much up for grabs. I know Arsenal fans will very much disagree with me after the season they've had this year, but I saw Liverpool almost win the quadruple last season and are not going to finish in the top four this year. Yeah. Things change. Football's cyclical. Things happen very, very quickly in football. And if you don't invest well in the summer, then things can change very quickly. So Chelsea have got to hope that they've got the base of a squad that Mauricio Pochettino can work with, and they have to hope that they can trim the squad and get rid of assets that they don't want in order for this team to be cohesive going forward.
No, I think that's fair. I think there's so many potential permutations for the top four next year. You can make a strong argument for many scenarios, and I don't think you would be unreasonable about Arsenal either. They probably will be there, but who knows what Champions League football is going to do to them. But with Chelsea, we were having a passionate chat before we went recording about this, and Chelsea are such a strange club, and the temptation is to look at the money they've got and the players they've got and the manager they've got and go, yeah, of course they'll be back. But we've sat there and watched Man United, finish outside the top four despite signing world-class players on their day, and I think it just shows you how much the human aspect of football is so important, because it doesn't matter who you sign sometimes. It matters the structure and the stability of the club, and you can sign loads of players and you can do all this, but eventually, that confusion will seep through to the players. They will understand that there's no direction and they will get in each other's way, and you've got so many people trying to learn the tea lady's name still. Who's going to be the one to see them through this? And when you see the links of people like Mason Mount leaving, it's ridiculous in my opinion, and because these are the experienced players that you should be building around, and it's all good. And I've spoken to Chelsea fans signing 10 of the best young players in world football, but you can't have that many projects on the go at the same time, because you don't know who is going to succeed. When you've got the likes of Maduaka and Sterling and Mudryk and Kweku coming in, who's the settled one there? Who's the one that you're going to rely on? And you can't have them all trying to adapt at the same time. It just feels so football manager, it's just a kid on FIFA signing a bunch of players, and it is entirely down to Todd Bowley coming in and spending loads of money. It's his money, so good luck to him doing it. But at the same time, it's moving the backroom staff and putting himself as a sporting director. It all screams to me instability. They could do it on the talent they've got alone in Pochettino. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if we're sat here in 12 months going, Chelsea are languishing in 7th, 8th.
What's fascinating in this case is, if you strip away what we've seen this season and just put down the names on a sheet, which is probably why Pochettino's been convinced of this job, he could have a very strong 11 when fully fit. And the only thing that's missing probably is a number 9, which obviously Lampard faced that issue and Graham Potter, and there are a few potentials on the market. If Pochettino finds that 9, you'd imagine the type of manager he is, he can galvanise players, he can get players to sort of breathe the way he wants them to and feel things the way he wants them to feel it, like he did at Spurs. Let's not forget he nearly guided Spurs to a title. And generally speaking, that is what he's all about. In terms of strikers, you got Dusan Vlahovic as an option. Hasn't done very well at Juve this season. 27 appearances, 10 goals, 15% conversion rate. But he's a fox in the box, 7 goals from inside the box. And before he went to Juve, all of Europe wanted him. The opposite option to him is Sadio Mane, who's 110% leaving Bayern, according to reports. 25 appearances, 7 goals. I'd imagine if I offered you those 2 names right now, you're probably siding more towards Dusan Vlahovic.
Potentially, just because Mane doesn't necessarily operate primarily down the middle, and we've got too many players like that. And Nkunku's coming in. Is he an out-and-out striker? I want somebody to score goals. Please give me somebody that scores goals. Not since the days of Diego Costa have I seen a Chelsea striker consistently score goals, get to 20 Premier League goals in the season. And that's what the issue's been for like the last 3 managers, just struggling to find that consistent number 9 who can put the ball in the back of the net. And if you look at teams that win the biggest trophies, that are the best teams in the world, barring Man City last season, they've got a consistent number 9 who puts the ball in the back of the net, or a goal getter like a Mo Salah, whose primary purpose is to go and get goals, despite the fact that he can create as well. Chelsea haven't had that, and if you don't have that, you don't have anything. Despite the fact that Pochettino worked with limited resources at Spurs, he had one of the best strikers we've ever seen in Harry Kane. And don't be surprised to see Pochettino look internally as well, in terms of at Chelsea's academy, maybe players that we haven't seen in the first team this year. He's got a philosophy of utilising the core British players. If you look at that Spurs side, if you look at Eric Dyer, you look at Dele Alli, you look at Harry Kane, there was a very British core to that Spurs side. Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier at a point. And he's going to utilise that at Chelsea as well. And that's why the Mason Mount leaving thing surprises me massively. And maybe Pochettino's coming in a little bit too late to salvage that situation. But if he had his way, he'd definitely keep Mason Mount.
I was going to say, what about Lukaku returning? Is there any chance of that? Because Pochettino will know he's a talented player there. I know it's been a mess, but it was a mess very much of... Chelsea is so different to they were 12 months ago. Like, it doesn't feel like anything that happened with Lukaku is even relevant anymore.
I feel like Chelsea fans have sort of given up on that idea. I think like the interview and everything that happened, I think you're sort of praying Inter take him on. I think he's happy at Inter as well. That's the feeling. Very quickly, does no European football help Chelsea next season? Could it just allow you to go, let's focus on the Premier League, achieve top 4, or whatever that ambition might be next season? Maybe even an Arsenal type season where you somehow compete for the title.
I've always subscribed to that philosophy because of what Chelsea did in the 16-17 season under Antonio Conte when he first came into the league, and he won the league with Chelsea, able to adapt that side and bring in the back 3, and no European football meant we could play like once every 7 days. But this is a huge Chelsea squad, and I don't see us stripping all of these assets. These players need game time. And as much as people want to look down their nose at the Conference League or the Europa League, it's an opportunity to give players minutes. And it's an opportunity to also gain form. If you're not going well in the league, but you manage to pick up a decent win midweek, then going into the game on the weekend, you've got a bit more confidence. If things are going really badly for Chelsea in the league, and like this season we drew Man City in both domestic competitions, it could be a very long season for Chelsea with no glimmer of hope. The one glimmer of hope we had this season was the European competition. It was a pipe dream, but we were like, Chelsea could win the Champions League. Having that European competition in the background gives you something to latch onto, especially because Chelsea are adept against the further stages of those. So not having European football is not a good thing for Chelsea this season.
I agree. I don't think it's ever really been a good thing. I think it's one of those things on paper that makes sense, but when you really dive into it, maybe that 16-17 season, just because Conte was such an aggressive trainer, maybe it just helped being a bit fitter at the weekend because they weren't as tired. But to me, I don't know, if you're a club like Chelsea, you want to be there, and I think there's an element of there's a general kind of feeling of like importance that you get from being a Champions League club, and I think it just plays into the expectations, and I think sometimes expectations guide a team, so to speak. And I don't think it harms you playing against one of the best sides in Europe, because I know, for example, my team, Guardiola prefers it. He prefers that rhythm. He prefers at this stage of the season a game every 3 or 4 days, because the players are sharp, they're focused, there's no time for distractions, and I think Champions League is the most beautiful distraction in football. So I don't really see how they benefit from it, because if anything, they're just a year away from the level they want to be.
Yeah.
The Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.